let's hit it.
And welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation as usual as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
All right, here we go. What you think about, you will bring about.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. If you enjoyed the opening music, it's called Clarion Call by our friends with the Mark Arneson Band featuring Maya Dora, and you can download that on any of your favorite music platforms if you like. For those of you that are new to Alzheimer Speaks, we are a show that was created because my mom lived with dementia for 30 years. And as a frustrated daughter, I wanted to connect people to services, products, and tools and trials like we're going to be talking about today. I think it's really important that we raise everyone's voice. So our show is really about sound news and information, not just sound bites. We want to have real conversations with real people who are dealing with Alzheimer's disease and all the other various types of dementias as well. Today is a live show, so you can call in. That number is 323-870-4602. That is 323-870-4602. But before I introduce our guest today, I always like to give a shout-out to a few organizations. And I have to just talk about Dementia Map, our global resource directory that we launched. We are having so much fun seeing more and more resources being added to that all the time, and the comments that we are getting from families who are utilizing this, as well as professionals finding out about things they didn't know about. So I urge you to go to dementiamap.com and just check it out. You'll find not only resources, but there's an events calendar, there's a glossary and a blog, and so much more. And if you are a provider of a service, product, or tool or a source of information, you can also take a tour. I'd be more than glad to give you a tour of the site because to show how it can really help your particular business or information source there. Need to also yell out to the Memory Cafe directory. Some of the Memory Cafes are now meeting in person, and Dave has done such a wonderful job coordinating 5 different countries. So check out Memory Cafe directory, and you'll be able to find out who is meeting, who is not, are they virtual or are they in person. And then Coral Health, of course, is still allowing people to download 2 of their apps, Music First and Coral Faith, for free. So check out coralhealth.com. That's CORO health.com. We're going to hear from the footbar walker, and then we are going to come back and learn about some non-invasive clinical trials for Alzheimer's disease.
Introducing the life-changing footbar walker.
I'm Peggy from Danville, Kentucky, and I'm 91 years old. The footbar walker revolutionized my care of George. The saving that I made from having to put him in a nursing home came to about $192,000. The footbar walker opens and closes just like a standard walker. The only thing that is different is the top bar and the foot bar. Does that ever make a difference?
Does someone you love use a walker? Do they struggle to get up from a seated position? Are you a caregiver dealing with physical pain and stress as you help your patient? The footbar walker was designed to assist not only the patient, but also the caregiver. Patients have more control standing up, and no lifting from the caregiver is required. See how it works at thefootbarwalker.com. That's thefootbarwalker.com. Peggy, would you recommend the footbar walker?
Do I ever? I would not be in the health that I'm in today at this age had it not been for the footbar walker.
Well, we are back again, and I'm so excited to have this conversation. It's always fun to learn about trials that are out there, it's so hard to kind of pick through and find what applies to you. And so we are so lucky to have our guest with us today. We are going to introduce first Leen Kawas. And Leen, welcome to the show. I appreciate you joining us here today. Leen is the president and chief executive officer of Athira Pharma, a late clinical stage biopharmaceutical company focused on developing small molecules to restore neural health and neurodegeneration. So welcome. How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you for having me, Lori, and excited for our conversation today.
Wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and also introduce our other guest today. We have Doctor Anton Porsteinsson with us, and he is a professor of psychiatry, neurology, neuroscience, and medicine at the University of Rochester School of Medicine and Dentistry in Rochester, New York. He is also the director of the University of Rochester's Alzheimer's Disease Care Research and Education Program, known as the AD-CARE program. So welcome to you. How are you doing, Dr. Porsteinsson?
Hi, Lori. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I'm excited to have you both with us today, and I'm going to actually start by talking with Leen, if that's okay. And I always ask each of my guests the same question before we kind of dive into your specific topic here, and that is, have you been touched personally by dementia in your own circle of family or friends, Leen? Let's see. We got to get her. We're having trouble with the audio. Okay, Leen, let's try it again.
Yes. So I haven't met to date anyone who has not been impacted directly or indirectly by dementia and the Alzheimer's form of dementia. Me personally, I had my grandmother who passed away last year. She suffered from Alzheimer's, and I've seen firsthand the impact of this disease, not only on the patient, but really the people that are impacted by this disease, and how it really takes away from everybody the memories, the experiences, and the legacy of the person. So it's really a personal mission for me. And it's also a personal mission for the team at Athira.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And Dr. Porsteinsson, how about you? Have you been personally touched by dementia in your family or circle of friends?
Absolutely, Lori. This has certainly touched me personally. Both my parents actually died from dementia. It looked so different in each party, and that's the confusing picture here sometimes, that the presentation of dementia can vary so much from one person to another. You look around beyond just your closest circle, and dementia is so common. It seems to be just like Leen said, that nobody seems to not know someone close to them that has been touched by dementia.
That is so true, and I really appreciate you sharing and then noting that both your parents were very different in terms of how the disease manifested within each of them. I think that, everyone thinks it's kind of this rule book and it just goes from A to B to C to D, and it doesn't. It flips and it flops all over the place. And like you said, it is very difficult even to diagnose when the symptoms aren't all the same in everybody. So thank you for sharing that. Leen, I'm going to start with you, and I'm wondering if you can tell us about the investigation that you're doing on the drug titled ATH-1017 that's currently being evaluated for clinical trials. What is it and how does it work?
Yeah, so at Athira, we've developed a small molecule that promotes a naturally occurring repair pathway in the brain that really, we believe, can repair the brain cells, repair connections that are lost in the brain, and repair brain activity. We've actually captured some early data in Alzheimer's, mild to moderate Alzheimer's subjects, where we've seen in a measurement a significant improvement in brain function. And we hope that this will translate into improvement in quality of life, recovery of memory, and other functions that people impacted by the disease might suffer from. So this is very innovative and very novel compared to the traditional path where people have been focused more on protein pathologies, A beta or tau. Here we are focused on regeneration of brain cells, recovery of connection, that we are targeting not only to slow down the disease, but also hopefully see some improvement and recovery of memory and function. Currently, we are running 2 trials here in the U.S. and globally, and we're very excited that Dr. Porsteinsson is one of our prominent investigators on the trials and has been really supportive with partnership on these trials as well.
Now, you also, I would like you to talk about another phase that you have done a 1B/2A studies for this drug. And, what's the difference between the phases? Because I think that that's something that the general public typically doesn't understand.
So drug development, there's a lot of non-clinical work that needs to happen. Then we move into clinical testing, and typically there are 3 phases, phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3. At Athira, we're really focused on efficiencies in drug development because our goal is to get treatment to patients and people who are impacted by these diseases as fast as possible. And what we've done in our phase 1 is we included a cohort of mild to moderate Alzheimer's patients. Typically, patients are included in the phase 2 and 3, but part of our effort to accelerate our clinical development, we decided to include some patients early on and also look at brain functionality. We used a measurement that neurologists are very familiar with, is T300, which really is the speed by which our brain process information. And as what people expect with aging and with dementia, our brain slows down. So they're not able to process information at the same speed as healthy brains. And we've seen with 8 days of treatment, recovery of this measurement, basically Alzheimer's brains were able to process information faster. And we collect this information through a method that is very established in neurology. And now we are in the phase 2 trial and another trial that's phase 2/3. So again, we're trying to accelerate and merge the phase 2 and 3 together in a hope basically to really accelerate a trial. So you see that we really are not following the conventional path, phase 1, 2, 3. We're trying to build some efficiencies within our clinical development.
Interesting. I always thought that there were certain rules that you had to follow, and you couldn't try different things different ways. I guess that's just me being naive. Now, with your company, you are utilizing a non-invasive biomarkers to evaluate the relationship between the ATH-1017 and the restoration of the brain network itself. Can you tell us more on how that was designed within the clinical trials to incorporate like EEGs and ERPs, and maybe let our audience know what the heck those acronyms even stand for, because not everybody knows. And then how do these better, give you data for your research on the patients?
Yes. And Dr. Porsteinsson also he's an expert in the field, can also add some of his feedback here. So basically, it's the same, what I described, the P300 or evoked response potential is a way to measure brain waves. An EEG, electroencephalogram, it's measuring brain activity, brain waves. And the way that we look at it and the way that we analyze the data, we could get an impression of the brain network health and activity with EEG. And the second part is we can look at the ability of the brain to process information. So basically, there's a functional task with asking patients with dementia, and specifically what we looked at is mild to moderate Alzheimer's subjects, to really run this task, and it needs brain processing within the memory domains. Unfortunately, with dementia and Alzheimer's, our brains slow down. But what we've seen with the treatment is there is recovery in this processing speed. I don't know if anything else, Dr. Porsteinsson, you wanted to add. You see a lot of programs, and if there's anything that you want to discuss that excited you to be part of these trials based on the data.
Yeah, so let me come back to the ERP, or evoked response potentials. So what this measure does is that it actually measures brain activity. It is a dynamic function of the brain, and when you have someone with Alzheimer's disease, there are a number of waves which actually show how well and how fast the brain processes information. And the P300 wave is well recognized as a measure of brain processing power. In patients with Alzheimer's disease, you can see a delay in and flattening of this wave, which suggests that the brain isn't working as quickly or as efficiently as you would expect, and it isn't processing information the way that you would expect. And for all of us that know Alzheimer's disease and other dementias, that's exactly what you're looking at on a day-to-day basis. That's the clinical presentation of the disease. So this is a way to test the target engagement of a medication, in this situation ATH-1017, and see if the drug does what it is proposed to do. And based on the early phase data, there was a clear benefit from being on the drug in terms of the size and the speed of this P300 wave in terms of the latency. And that function is independent of, one of the things that always challenges us when we're working with patients with Alzheimer's disease is that some days they have a good day, some days they don't have a good day, whether they focus well on the memory testing. That can be impacted by something as simple as, did they sleep well last night? So having a marker like this that is actually very independent, it just shows how well the brain cells are working, certainly lends a lot of validation to the compound that you're looking at. And certainly this was one of the things that excited me about becoming a site, what we call a site principal investigator in the Athira ATH-1017 study, or LIFT-AD as the branch of the study is called, that we're a site for. That was a novel target that has multiple different downstream effects. It's different than what you're seeing with drugs that just laser-focused target beta amyloid or tau or maybe one neurotransmitter. This basically targets a receptor complex that is the acronym is HGF-MET. And HGF-MET has multiple different downstream effects. It assists with survival and regeneration. There is an anti-inflammatory property. There is the potential for generating more connections between neurons, and then in addition to that, to basically modulate glutamatergic NMDA receptors to work in a healthier fashion. So this whole system, it's been well established that it's downregulated, and increasingly so as Alzheimer's disease progresses. And therefore, upregulating this target and seeing what this large number of downstream effects brings in terms of clinical impact is so promising. And, a lot of the discovery engine in Alzheimer's disease and other dementias, and especially what I call risk-taking, finding novel targets and trying to push the envelope, happens with small kind of discovery-focused biotech companies, often based on work that has been done in academic settings or, universities and medical centers for an extended period of time. So frequently there's a lot of scientific evidence base that is underlying this approach. And that was part of what attracted me to this specific study. One other thing that I think is important with this study is that it aims to recruit and help people that have established disease. What I mean by that is that patients that have clinical Alzheimer's disease in the mild and the moderate range. As you probably know, Lori, we've been in clinical research. We've been moving to kind of target our research earlier and earlier and earlier, in a preventative fashion for people that maybe have no evidence of disease, or on people that have mild cognitive impairment or very mild Alzheimer's disease. And that leaves behind this huge group of people, millions of people in the U.S. and tens of millions of people worldwide that already have established Alzheimer's disease, and those are the individuals that actually are the most disabled by the disease, and where the disease burden is the highest and the burden for caregivers is the highest. So I think it is incredibly important that we see research-driven efforts such as Athira is doing here, that targets people with within the broad spectrum of clinical Alzheimer's disease.
I agree. I mean, it's nice to look early on, but those that are in the grips of it right now, they want attention, they want support, they want some hope as well. So thank you for explaining that. Leen, was there anything else that you wanted to add to what Dr. Porsteinsson had just mentioned?
I think this was summarized greatly, and it's part of the company's mission to really find a solution to people who are at the highest need for it, which, as Dr. Porsteinsson highlighted, really the patients that are in the mild to moderate range and have to deal with the outcome of the disease. The other thing that I wanted to mention is, in addition to the LIFT AD that Dr. Porsteinsson site is part of the study, we do have an ACT AD trial that is going to be looking at the P300 evoked response potential, the biomarker, non-invasive biomarker, and correlate with cognitive improvement, which hopefully this study will provide a tool that will benefit everyone in the field, not only Athira. And that's another goal for us, is really to help build and advance our field, and people who are developing drugs to potentially take advantage of confirmation of the results that we are hoping to get as an outcome of the ACT-AD trial.
Well, wonderful, and that really is kind of a different approach from what we've heard from other organizations, where everyone kind of keeps to themselves. And I know that there's been a shift in that over the last just few years, though. But I think that's critical to get us to move faster and more thoroughly, through this disease process and all the different types of theories that are out there. We may have already answered this in just our conversations, but I had down here to ask you about Athira's approach being different from other players in this space. Was there anything else that you wanted to add on that? Because I know we made some definite differentiations, but maybe there's more.
Yeah, I think just to highlight again that it's a regenerative approach. We're looking not only to slow down the disease, it's improvement. We're targeting the mild to moderate stages of the disease. And one other important component, we understand that dementia and Alzheimer's are complex diseases, and we need to address them in different ways. And with our target, we have multimodal, so multiple things are happening that potentially can benefit the patient, that could have a more significant improvement, not only slowing down the disease. And I just want to comment on your last point, Lori, that the shift in the industry or the field in general of being more protective and discreet to be more collaborative. This is a very important component for Athira, is really we're focused why we do this, why we're, spending our days and nights with a global trial, because we're doing all of this for the patients. We all have been impacted, and this is the why for us, is we want to make sure that the whole space, not only our drug, is benefiting, and ultimately patients and people impacted by dementia and Alzheimer's are benefiting from the research and the work that we're doing.
Wonderful. And I can't say how important that is. For me, just as a family member who, has this in her gene pool here, and looking around, and granted I'm in the industry, so I run into it so much, but like Dr. Porsteinsson said, there's so many people that have been touched by this disease. I mean, it's almost impossible not to have a conversation with somebody who doesn't know somebody within their own family or circle of friends, that is dealing with this. So it's extremely important. If the data from the clinical trials for the ATH-1017 continue to be positive, what are the next steps in the development and therapy of the drug?
So basically, we're going to be in close discussions with the regulators and the FDA. Typically, after this stage, we might have to run one additional study, but we're going to be targeting, to work towards a registration. We know that there has been a collaborative environment overall to support innovation and approvals of drugs that work differently and could have a significant impact on people with dementia and Alzheimer's. So really, we're doing things in parallel. That's why we're doing a phase 2-3. We potentially can have another trial and start putting the package for the drug to access the market and hopefully help the larger group of people impacted by the disease. And that will be, I think, our ultimate goal and an amazing achievement for us.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm going to kind of flip over to Dr. Porsteinsson, and I'm just very interested, and I think our audience probably is too, if you wouldn't mind sharing maybe a little bit more of your story about, your experience, with your parents, just in terms of how long did each of them live with the disease, and then your experience not only as a son but as a physician in terms of dealing with this in on a personal level. Oops. Let me see here. Okay, let's try that again.
You can hear me now?
We can hear you now. Yep. Just having some blimps today. Sorry about that.
So, Lori, I'm originally from Iceland, so my parents lived there, and I can very much identify with many of the caregivers that are probably on this call that aren't living close to their loved ones, and the challenge that brings. Thankfully, my siblings were close in terms of distance. And I was able to, use the modern day technologies to stay involved. My dad was younger when he got his memory disease, and he had much more neuropsychiatric symptoms. He had much more depression. Some anxiety, worry, suspiciousness, and that, to begin with, seemed to be a bigger problem dealing with on a day-to-day basis. But the dementia quickly, as we know, is a relentless disease that progresses. So the memory deficits, the language problems, the impairment in logic and reasoning pretty quickly became an equally large impairment. And my mom was healthy at the time, the best we knew, and as often, the primary caregiver is an elderly spouse, and she did an amazing job. This is so heartbreaking to see the, your lifelong partner kind of slowly and surely fade away with all the associated distress and loss of self that takes multiple years. And I'm sure that the stress of providing care for my dad accelerated her own course, which became apparent, a couple of years after he had passed. Thankfully, she didn't have any of the worst neuropsychiatric symptoms, the depression, the worry, the agitation. She had a more of what one would maybe call a classical presentation, a slow and steady erosion of short-term memory, and ultimately, it progressed to a point where she always recognized us, but sometimes would, in the more advanced stages, not be quite sure what was our exact relationship. Were you a son? Were you a brother? She worried a lot about her parents, both of whom had health problems. When she was younger, so as the dutiful daughter that she was, she wanted to hear that they were okay and that they were doing well. And it's interesting, how do you deal with that when they have passed a long time ago, but sometimes you just have to kind of say, they're doing well. They're doing well. So I feel that even if it was challenged by the distance, we were able as a family to come together and work together. I had some of the expertise and could guide in terms of medical management and things that have scientific evidence base in terms of making a difference, and how to connect with community organizations and other resources, and could thus guide my brothers and their wives how to manage well on the ground. And then you make regular visits to kind of make sure that everything is working as efficiently as possible. It's never perfect, but we were able to struggle through it.
Mm-hmm.
And we had good people around us.
Wonderful. Well, it sounds like you were a very lucky family to work together. Not every family is that lucky. Sometimes that can be really challenging. So thank you for sharing that with us.
And Lori, that is not automatic. That's not, absolutely. We had to work to make that happen. And you don't always, just because you're the expert, you don't always have to, or you consider yourself the expert, you don't always have to come away as, the quote, the winner. Sometimes you need to know when you need to let others have their say, and when you need to kind of say, okay, I hear you would like to do it this way. Let's do it your way. But, what would signal to us that maybe that's not working well? Let's think about that. What would make us change our course? And to basically keep an open mind and not let this kind of hurt lifelong relationships that you have with your siblings and other family members. It's it's a tragedy enough to have the disease we're on, but there's life after the patient with Alzheimer's disease has passed away, and you can't have the legacy that keeps you apart. But, these personal experiences are also some of the drivers why I want to push the envelope and I want to focus on new discoveries. And because what we were able to offer my family and my patients at that time is definitely not acceptable. We really, really have to do better than this. We can't have several more generations succumb to Alzheimer's disease without being able to make a meaningful difference in their care and their quality of life and well-being.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I agree. I was going to ask you about, we've got only about 20 minutes left here, about other therapies in development for Alzheimer's disease. We hear so much about the amyloid and beta plaque and all of those types of things. And to me, I'm really excited to see and hear about these new trials that are out there that are coming from a very different approach. Do you want to touch on just some of the other ones? And again, I know you've already kind of stated why you're so excited about this one.
Sure. So let's look at that. I think the most important thing in my book right now is that there's no single solution to Alzheimer's disease or other related dementias. It's unlikely that we will come out with one treatment that works for everyone. Alzheimer's disease and other dementias seem to be different diseases that come together into like a final pathway that looks similar, but yet is. And there's a brand new study this week that actually suggests that there are at least 4 different versions of Alzheimer's disease, and I'm sure that there are more of them. So each patient has different things going on. Some people may have a disease that is driven by, high amyloid burden. Others have different types of tau burden. The degree of neuroinflammation matters, and the degree of death of neurons, or what we call neurodegeneration, matters. And in the long run, we'll have to use biomarkers to understand better what is your personal disease like, and come up with probably a combination treatment that addresses the things that have gone askew for you as an individual. This is what we refer to as personalized medicine. And that's why we need many eggs in our basket, and we need more than one basket. We need several baskets, and each one of them has to have several eggs in them. That's just like what we're looking at with high blood pressure, with cancer, with diabetes. There rarely is just like a one solution. And you mentioned that we have currently the drugs that are available, the symptomatic drugs, on one hand help activate or increase the efficiency of the cholinergic system, or acetylcholine, or they stabilize the glutamatergic system. So those are the 2 drugs that are approved. They don't change the underlying course of disease to the best of our knowledge. And but, while their impact is modest, it's meaningful. In clinical trials, we have a number of different things. So a number of drugs that target beta amyloid, and beta amyloid certainly is an important part of Alzheimer's disease, but how to target it and at what stage of the disease has kind of eluded us a little bit. We're trying to understand the same about tau and interventions that target the tau tangles, which is the other hallmark of Alzheimer's disease. We're increasingly seeing studies that go after neuroinflammation, and furthermore studies that go after oxidative stress and metabolism. And then you have studies like the Athira study that I call multimodal. That is, you target a kind of a key point in the process, in the disease process, and also in the physiological process that creates a certain balance in the brain, and that's why, for example, we're pretty excited about the HGF/MET pathway. And one thing that I think will be important is the new medications that we may bring to patients, hopefully in the not too distant future. Can they work together? Is the medication safe? Is it well tolerated? Are there no bad drug-drug interactions? So that you can be ready for the combination treatments that I think will be the standard approach 5 to 10 years from now.
Okay. One of the things that I've always wondered, and I've never asked this question, but, has there ever been any discussion on combining not just medications, but like a social engagement tool like music? Music has been known to, connect people, get the brain to be a little bit more active in different ways and have a layover effect and stuff. Has that ever been discussed and I'm going to ask you that, Dr. Porsteinsson, and then also Leen, because I hear people talking about why can't they work together on this, because some of the social things that people do, they feel like they really help with the barriers that Alzheimer's and various types of dementia bring to the table, that they really help cut that back. So what are your thoughts on that? And then I'll go to Leen on that.
Yeah. So Lori, you're absolutely right that, I make those recommendations to all of my patients that they need to focus on lifestyle, they need to focus on diet, they need to focus on exercise, cognitive stimulation, social interaction, and all the tools that help with that. We would hope that every person that is battling Alzheimer's disease makes these adjustments in their lives, and are helped to do that by their families and resources in the community. There are some studies that have focused historically on diet and lifestyle, like the Finger study. And there is a version of the Finger study that is launching in the not-too-distant future that will have a medication along with it. The important thing, though, is that we're still at the early discovery stage. And the Food and Drug Administration, as well as other regulatory bodies around the world, want treatments to stand on their own. So initially, you have to show that, for example, ATH-1017 can work on its own. And then, you can gun for combinations, and that could be this medication along with lifestyle modifications or exercise, or this medication with other medications. But in this stage of development, for example, that Athira is looking at, the expectation by a regulatory body like the FDA is that it can stand on its own, and they have to design the studies and execute the studies according to extremely strict criteria. So that the FDA knows that the data that is submitted for regulatory approval is, has a high degree of fidelity, and this is complex and it's challenging, and it takes a lot of effort by everyone involved. It takes effort by the companies that are sponsoring the studies, the companies that run and oversee the studies, what we call the clinical research organizations, by all the sites and the staff at all the sites, as well as the patients and the study partners that they have. But it is important to highlight that that music. There's something unique about music. I've seen that so often. Exercise, thoughtful attention to diet, et cetera. These are low-risk changes that you can make that yield benefits. I do believe that they have an impact on the disease course, and they certainly can have an impact on, a person's quality of life, as well as the caregiver's quality of life.
Sure. I'm going to just pull Leen in and see if she had a quick comment on that, because I want to make sure that we talk about the eligibility for the study and so forth, too. Leen, any comments that you wanted to add to kind of mixing drugs and lifestyle things like music and arts and exercise in the future?
Yes. So thank you for this comment, and I want to answer it in a different way. I do think that these type of stimulation, whether it's music, exercise, social engagement, are important to help us manage the patients. But I also want to highlight the caregivers. There's a lot of caregivers that have been struggling, especially during the pandemic. They've went through social isolation. And for us, when we are running our trials, we actually look at both the patient and the caregiver and think about ways to support them. Even during the design phases of the trial, we had caregivers and patients that were partners with us to develop a study that could help address their needs, even during the trial. And one thing that we've done at Athira, especially as we started talking to the caregivers, there has been a social isolation due to the pandemic and the unusual times that we're living in. And what we did in our trial is we actually added a support call line for the caregivers. It's an optional service for the sites and the patient. We're really providing a study companion for the caregiver, someone who could talk to the patient, give them guidance around how to use the medication, and just be a support person and a call that they expect, and they could engage socially with this partner or on the study. This is important because this is a disease that doesn't impact one person. It really impacts a tribe around this person, and we shouldn't forget about the caregivers that are really important to have a healthy social life, to tolerate, the impact of and the changes in their life, as well as to be the best partner they could for their husband, wife, parents, sister, brother. And that's what we're trying to achieve, is think about how does this impact the unit and how can we help the caregiver and the patient.
Wonderful. Nice differentiation from what is happening, I think, with between you and other clinical trials out there. Dr. Porsteinsson, I want to ask you about the LIFT study. If you can tell us who is eligible, and what does that screening process look like, the treatment regime itself that they participate in, and just how you're going to measure things.
Absolutely. So we're looking for people that, if you look at the big picture, that have mild to moderate Alzheimer's disease. So clinically diagnosed mild to moderate Alzheimer's disease. The MMSE range is from 14 to 24, and the age is 55 to 85 years old. They have to have a study partner that has a meaningful interaction with them on a on a daily/weekly basis. They don't have to be on other treatment, but they are allowed to be on a cholinesterase inhibitor. That's donepezil, rivastigmine, and galantamine. But because of the proposed mechanism of action, that one of the possible mechanisms of action for ATH-1017 is that it may have an impact on the glutamatergic NMDA receptor. While we're answering exactly what this drug does, that memantine or Namenta is not allowed as a concomitant treatment. You can be on cholinesterase inhibitor or not on treatment. Obviously, we don't want people that don't have Alzheimer's disease as the cause of their dementia, because that would mean that we're introducing noise to the study if people don't actually have the condition that we're trying to treat. And we want them to, in general, be in good health and not have any major medical problems that would confound the study or not make it safe for them to be in the study. So basically, you come in for you reach out to a local site, and you're they will probably ask you some information about your general health and treatment and when you were diagnosed, etc. Then they will set up a screening visit, talk to you about the study, and make sure that you have enough information that you can make an informed decision whether you want to participate or not. And the same goes for the study partner, or what we call sometimes legally authorized representative, who may need to provide agreement for the patient to be in the study as well. And then you confirm the history, you do memory testing, you look at their functional abilities, you do a physical and neurological exam, you do an EKG, you draw blood, and to make sure that you and the study are a good fit, that if you participate in the study, that it's a good idea for you, and that you're also someone that the study can get good information from in order to establish, is this medication safe, well tolerated, and effective, and can it be made available to millions of people all over the world?
Okay.
If you know, and then you come back once we have all the results from that, and you come for if everything looks good, you come for a baseline visit where you are randomized. This is a double-blind, placebo-controlled study, so some of the people are on a drug and some of them are on placebo. There are two doses. There's a low dose and a high dose of ATH-1017, and the assignment happens absolutely by chance, and nobody at the site knows whether you get the real drug or the inactive drug, and you don't know that either until well after the study is over. So it's a 26-week study. With an extension phase, and basically we want to show over 26 weeks whether those that are on drug have better cognition, better functional abilities, and whether a clinician can recognize that those on, are those on drug? Do they look better? Do they clinically seem better than those that got the inactive drug? And is there a difference between those that get the lower dose and those that get the higher dose? So a very standard study design. Basically you come over the 26 weeks, you come regularly to the site to receive your supply of medicine, to make sure that everything's going well, and for us to do all the clinical assessments that make us able to collect the data to show that the drug is safe and
Sure.
effective, and deserves to be available on the market.
Okay, so you're looking at about 6.5 months then of being part of this trial, and you do have to come in person to meet and things. And now people can go to the website, and that is AthiraClinicalTrials.com, or you can call for the study participation as well. In the U.S., that's 800-668-4714, and in Australia, I take that back, Australia, it's 800-043-212. And I said that wrong. It's actually 1800 in Australia, 043-212. But again, you can get all that information by going to the site, which we have listed below. I want to thank you both so much for taking the time with us today. This was really interesting, and we are really hoping to hear positive results. We'd love to have you come back and tell us the outcome, if that is possible. Leen, is that something that would be of interest?
Yes, of course. And all of the information that we covered is on athiraclinicaltrials.com. And through the numbers that you described, Lori, participants can call in and before they go to any site and determine if they potentially would be eligible and if this is a good study for them.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again both so much for participating in our show today. I hope our listeners like and click and share this episode with others. I think it's a very important study, and I'm going to be personally very anxious to hear the results of this. I think it's fascinating. So it always gives us hope when we hear about these trials. So take care, everyone. You can also check out alzheimerspeaks.com for more information. Bye now.
Well, hi, I'm Lori LeBay, and I wanted to tell you about Alzheimer Speaks, which is another great podcast. You see, my own mother lived with dementia for 30 years, and I felt lost. Did you know every 3 seconds someone in the world is being diagnosed with dementia? Odds are it's going to hit your families too. We want to help you connect to services, products, tools, research, and stories so you can be prepared. Please subscribe to Alzheimer Speaks on your favorite podcast platform.